Hello.
That's me. I do that.
I know. I was just saying hello.
Hello. And welcome to What If? I'm Kyle, your host of What If... ... question mark. I feel like not enough people put that ellipsis in there. There's lots of question marks everywhere. They're like, what if question mark? But then they don't put those ...
It's a very pregnant pause. A pregnant pause full of new ideas.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's good. Yes. Well, welcome my co-host, Marie-Claire Gould, everyone.
Hello. You may know me from such things as the Star Wars podcast, What the Force, and the RPG actual play podcast, Tavern Tales. And generally speaking, on the rest of this channel.
I don't have Tavern Tales t-shirts, or I would wear one every now and again. But I did get What the Force t-shirts for my entire family. Mm-hmm. And now, other than my wife's hoodie, which still is a nice, not shrunked thing, my long sleeve shirt is the only thing left that works and fits and is not faded beyond regard in the last 2 years. There you go.
What the Force has merch?
That's right.
Apparently. We do.
Hi. Thanks for joining us today as we delve into the third episode in the What If franchise from Marvel.
Yep.
This one is very different from the previous ones.
Holy heck is it?
So what are your highlights? What was it? How did you feel about this episode?
So, I think that this one was a little bit harder to get into because the premise up front wasn't explained, and it relied a little bit more on the audience just to be like, I'm already into this concept. I'm totally into, coming along for the journey and figuring it out. And they presented it entirely like a murder mystery or a whodunit. And I thought it was, especially after second viewing, extremely successful. I think the first viewing is a little bit like you're a little bit jarred because in the first two episodes, it presented exactly what it was going to do. And then it went from there. This one was a little bit more relying on you to come along for the journey and for it to kind of show you where it was going. And to me, I think that might be where people are a little bit more disoriented, but I would expect that they would go more in that direction in the future with future what ifs.
Cool. Shouldn't have told you all my thoughts beforehand.
You did not.
I shared all of that.
No, I mean,
it's cool.
Just the structure of it being
I've
a
seen
whodunit.
it 3 times, so I highly recommend a second viewing. All 3 have been very good. Mm-hmm. Number 2 had more humor and engaged. I mean, it just had Chadwick Boseman in it, so it was going to have that gravitas to it, that lended to it right away. And number 1, we didn't know what to expect. Number 1 is paint by colors, though. Really, a lot of the same things happen, and we talked about that in episode 1. A lot of the same things happened and the same beats were hit as happened in the first Avenger and in the tail end of Avengers when he was revealed, right? Or not Avengers, whichever movie that they revealed that the shield was in, and at the start of Avengers. So a lot of the beats were already hit for Captain America that we got in Captain Carter. And then in the second one...
It was actually at the end of the Captain America First Avenger movie.
Right.
It was revealed and he woke up in the future.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So the beats in the second one, we got very few. There were very few relationary points between between the movies, either Black Panther or Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. We just had a few hints of it as they explored a very different and very very heavy, very beautiful story for T'Challa.
Yeah.
This one, however, is more in the traditional lines of what if. It takes that what if scenario and plays it out well into the future so that there's much more, like you can see the same beats and how they are different in this one across 4 different movies, really like 5 different movies, which is incredible because we get the Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, then we get Thor, the first Thor movie. Then we get Avengers, and I'll touch on that as to how that comes into play, because Avengers is technically quite a bit down the road. Yep. Right, we're nowhere near that. We're just 1 week, and I don't know if you, the viewers, are aware, because I know Marie Claire and I weren't.
I wasn't aware those 3 movies happened in the same week.
Exactly.
That's crazy. I knew. Okay, so I knew that Coulson and Director Fury were dealing with different problems at the same time. So I knew about Incredible Hulk and Thor, but I did not know about Iron Man 2 happening at the same time, except for the fact that Tony, like, it is referenced in the movie that he's been dealing with other stuff, including a Hulk. Yeah. So
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it was really well constructed. I did want to say, in addition to my earlier thoughts, which were partially your thoughts, I guess, was that it is constructed like a film noir mystery, with a lot of sort of like dark themes to the episode, and like there's a lot of use of shadow just in the episode itself.
Well, it's a murder mystery.
No, I know, but
unfolding before our eyes. So you don't even. It's not even just like.
But what I'm saying is that Fury is playing the hard-boiled detective role, and Black Widow herself is like the femme fatale person. So it's really leaning into that genre. That's all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's not a whodunit. It's a who's doing it.
Yeah.
Which is amazing in its own way, but I can understand I watched it the first time as well, and I was like, this is weird. And I think I know why that is, and I'll discuss that a bit later. But I didn't get to name the 5th movie, and that is Ant-Man. So be prepared, be forewarned. We're about to walk right into Spoilertown? Spoilertropolis? I don't know how big the spoilers are going to be, but we're going to discuss the specifics of the entire show itself. And one of the top things I want to tell you about that is really good on a second watch, and I'm interested because I've watched the other 2 quite a few times as well in order to do analysis of them. This one had so much over the top, the Watcher in the background of our set pieces.
The Watcher is watching.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
There's even a flashing point at one point where it's focused in on Mjolnir as the lightning booms in the background because Hawkeye has said, you know, the artifact seems to have a personality of its own. You can see the lightning through the cloud cover, and it's 2 eye-shaped forms in there. So it literally, they're really drawing on the Watcher watching. Eyes are everywhere, and I honestly think that there's probably eyes that I have not seen that they've subtly put into the background, because all of these backgrounds are beautiful painted backdrops.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bet there's eyes in all of them.
Yeah. I definitely don't remember seeing the Watcher as much in the other 2, except for kind of like at the beginning when he's like part of like the constellation or the sky. But this is the closest we've seen the Watcher in the show.
Yeah, he's really close to the action here.
There's one, I know there's definitely one where he's in like San Francisco.
I want to say 5.
Yeah, like it's worth a rewatch if you haven't watched it, just to spot the Watcher. It's kind of freaky because you're like, wait a second, he's in those clouds. Wait a second, he's over there. Yeah.
I regret not having a series of all of the pictures from this episode to show off all the can you spot the Watcher. It's almost like the old She-Ra cartoons where at the end of it you're like Snarf or whatever his name was, like, where did you find me? And like, of course we didn't, because it's like, I'm here behind this tree and bush, and I'm like, I would never have noticed that. But nonetheless, let's dig into the episode itself, because it starts perfectly, almost beat for beat, after the race scene stuff in Iron Man 2, when Fury confronts Tony about joining the Avengers and maybe getting some help from other people, that he cannot do it all himself. He is suffering from palladium poisoning, and that's not the tabletop role-playing game, and having played it far too much as a youth.
What a deep cut from an RPG perspective. Yeah, no, and I I thought this played out really, really well and was super enjoyable to see it in an animated form, which like shout out to Gwendy in the comments and Gwendy 85 who's done some amazing memes and everything online, but she's doing something called Raylo Animated, and it's super entertaining to see like your favorite scenes redone in animated form. And I've always enjoyed this because it was kind of like this weird like middle of the movie Easter egg where we introduced Fury directly to Tony, and of course we got Black Widow actually coming out and saying, I'm a spy, haha, agent, yeah, like, you know. So in the actual movie it was really interesting, and then seeing it again in this form from a new perspective, and now What If'd, was also really, really cool.
Yeah. And of course, this is directed by the same gentleman who's directed all the other episodes so far. The key the storyboard writer for like 13 movies, of which all of the movies in this listing were done by him. So I don't doubt he got to cherry pick his favorite storyboards and put them back into animated form. And this is an incredible opening shot. I'm so happy to have it. I loved it when I saw it in the theater. I've always felt like superheroes should hang out in places that they would not normally be accessible to the normal ken of men. And what better than hanging out in the middle of a giant donut eating a box of donuts?
I mean, we commonly see that with Spider-Man, where we're watching all the Spider-Men's right now in a lead up to December and what we think is going to happen based on the casting. You know, just prepping ourselves for that. And, you know, you would think, hey, Tony wouldn't do this, but it's kind of cool to see that Tony can do it, and he would do it. Yeah.
So I wrote almost beat for beat down below because... and I don't think I've got another slide on this because it was a snippet scene. We go right up to the point where Tony gets stabbed. That is almost beat for beat, line for line. You can play them over top of each other. It's just that the movie, being 2 hours long, has like 8 or 10 throwaway lines and bits of repartee between them where they add some exposition and
they slimmed it down for this.
And it's been cut down to this, but all of the lines in this are exact up until the point where Tony gets jabbed and then dies instead of gets better. And I was like, did the Widow just kill Tony? Like,
yeah, I mean,
I was laid right up thinking the Widow had just killed Tony. I don't know if you were as well, but because we don't know what the what if is.
Yeah, we didn't know. And so it was, in so many ways, this episode was disorienting to start out with because we didn't know the premise of it, so we didn't know what to watch out for, what the watcher was watching out for.
Our narrator is telling us things, and they're completely irrelevant. They're just kind of like misnomers and idle comments, and just so the weather's nice today.
Yeah.
Like, no, you're the narrator. You're supposed to detail important information. Otherwise, why are you getting a voiceover at all?
Why aren't you more helpful? But on a second watch, you're like, this episode is just brilliant because of how it's constructed. And then once you know the reveal, it's just so thoughtful.
Yes. And I will point out, because it's a good point to say it, and I haven't ever mentioned this before. Ridley Scott, the famous director, he says voiceovers, no matter how beautifully done by Ryan Reynolds, a voiceover is terrible storytelling. It's especially horrible from the perspective of a movie. He thinks that anything that needs to be said in narration at the beginning is just revealing weaknesses in the artistry of the director. Your director should be able to inform you of what is going on, the who, what, where, when, why, without the need of a narrator, because your audience is smart enough to get it.
Oh, that's putting a lot on our modern audiences.
Well, here's the thing. So he did not have final cut in Blade Runner. And he sent Blade Runner to them, and the producers of Blade Runner and the production company said, we need an opening narration for this. No one is going to understand what's going on.
It's going to pick a fight with George Lucas for having the scroll.
Well, the scroll is different. That's a setup of the initial, right? It's not a narration. It's not like it happens once the movie has begun.
Okay, fine. Yeah, it doesn't lead the audience. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Literally, we have a voiceover from who? Where is this coming from? It's not set in the scene of what we've got. I kind of side on Ridley Scott's part. He has an opening, it is so-and-so, replicants are hidden amongst the people. That's written there for you to enter into the movie. But once you enter the movie, then there's an over voice, and he says it's weak storytelling to have an over voice or narrator in your movie.
Yeah.
And unfortunately...
I mean, Ebert would say, show me, don't tell me, right?
Exactly.
Like always, so...
And so now we've got a show that is predicated on having a narrator tell us things, and we assume that those things are going to be important. So one of the reasons why I think people are not as happy or satisfied with this particular one is that the watcher is not articulating the same things we're thinking.
Right.
He knows information that he has not passed on to us. He's withholding, and therefore you're feeling this element of struggle in the show. What's going on? Why isn't the watcher telling us? And my son, who has seen this episode, came to me today and said, I don't want to go talk about it today, Daddy. I didn't find it very good. The watcher wasn't the watcher. I'm the watcher, Daddy. I'm the watcher.
But that's so smart.
Yes.
Because that's exactly like we're playing the role of the watcher and we're experiencing these things.
Exactly. So moving on.
Oh, man. Okay. I do think like exactly what you said, exactly right. But I think that this show is trying to challenge its audience, and that's why. And it's probably gonna get more complex along these lines, where the watcher is doing a setup of sorts, but doesn't explain the punchline.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So now we get completely new stuff. As we move forward. I've added them both here because a lot of things that happen between and tangential to these characters, essentially murderizing the people that are so much more powerful than them. It is very interesting that Hawkeye is used to kill Thor and Black Widow is used to kill Iron Man, both of whom are largely just normal people, one killing a god and the other killing the tech giant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we've got this. They're led on with crossbones. It's one of my second favorite part of the entire thing is when Grillo, what's his first name? Frank Grillo, the actor who plays Crossbones.
Well, like, because this episode had so many stars in it, there was like an intro, like with the credits to show who was in it. And I'm like, Frank Grillo, we're getting Crossbones. And Kyle's like, what? I'm like, that's the only name I saw. Sorry, Teddy.
I'd already seen it, and I knew where he was coming from, and I was so excited because he's just so like a woman.
Yeah, and he's like he literally comes off as that person in his interviews. It's hilarious too.
Exactly.
Unfortunate, but yeah, he plays a good character.
I love how because he's a comedic beat in this, and he plays it so very well and so very believable.
I'm a little sad he's gone from the MCU. In so many ways, like it's nice to have him back because he's so nice to hate. Yeah. He's one of those characters that you're like, I love hating you because you're terrible as a human.
Yes.
Yeah.
But a great performer. I really want the actor back because he does such a good job of being that already I hate you type character.
Yeah, I already hate you. Yeah. And then we also get the sort of different play out of what happens with Thor.
Yes. Yeah. So we can move forward because we have a shift in focus. Mm-hmm. This is what's neat, and it ties back to the previous slide as well, is that when you're watching Thor, your focus, and that is the one you can actually, you can't see Thor in the movie. Mm-hmm. So when you're watching Thor, the focus is on Hawkeye because he's the deadly one, taking aim at Thor below, whom you know to be walking towards Mjolnir. But in the animated version,
we focus on
the focus
Thor.
Is on Thor because we've been following Hawkeye around. Mm-hmm. The focus is on him. What's he going to do? What's going to happen? How is it going to come to pass? We know Tony is dead. We assume, therefore, that Thor is next to go, and that's what leads this. Well, how could he misfire? It's not even possible. Was it the lightning that shocked him, and he let go of the arrow? I mean,
yeah, Hawkeye doesn't miss. Right?
He doesn't miss. He doesn't misfire. But it was neat to see that shift in focus. And at this point as well, a whole bunch of those threads that have been interwoven in the MCU have already come untangled, because in Thor, Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury, is not there. He is not in Arizona.
He didn't go there
New
because
Mexico.
he was busy with Tony and the stuff going on there.
Yeah, he could not leave. He was busy. He did not go to New Mexico ever at any given point. But in the cartoon here, in our animated version, he's there.
Tony's dead, and so what else has he got to do? Let's show up and take care of a god.
And what this does is that in the movie, in Thor, Coulson's in charge. And so Coulson plays his I'm in charge, I'm the guy responsible, everyone do the thing. And it's neat to see, I don't know if Clark Gregg was doing this deliberately, but as soon as he becomes the second in command, or it's no longer his command, you can immediately see him lighten up, loosen up, and share and be more friendly and funny as he goes on and on about how beautiful Thor is.
His hair is, and it feels like his hair is longer in the animated version.
It is longer in the animated version.
It's long and it's luscious, and truth be told, like,
look, it's really hard in real life to make long, luscious hair look like gorgeous stuff in the rain.
Hey, yeah, no, it's
in animated, easy.
Yeah, he's a god, you know, even though he's in mortal form right now because of the curse, right? But the curse on Mjolnir, the Geas on Mjolnir. But like, it's what every person that's attracted
oh my god
to him,
he's got beautiful hair.
Yeah, like, but like it's everything that we were always thinking about with, you know, so it's really nice to have a character voice things when you're like, oh my god, he's so beautiful, like, on screen. It was really so good. And yeah, Coulson is shout out to Lily, like, Coulson is the ultimate fanboy.
And he is so quick to notice beauty in other men.
Yes.
A lot of people have been commenting on that on Twitter and whatnot too, that it would be interesting to see other OCs in the pursuit down these other paths that have Coulson kind of more recognizing his enjoyment of the male form.
Good on him.
Even Hawkeye is like, no, right. He's right there. He's beautiful.
Yeah.
There's no other way to term it.
But that's sort of a running gag with the Guardians of the Galaxy too, right? Like with Drax appreciating how gorgeous Thor is. Like, yeah, I just think, like, yeah, that's just, yeah.
The screen does wonders to make Hemsworth look that much more amazing and whatnot. But I think that he is an actor portraying a character, and there's only so much they can do. So those recognitions and those comments, especially from other powerful male figures of authority and strength, having them recognize the power, strength, and beauty of Thor helps put us into that perspective of recognizing, right, he is a god.
Yeah, like, and he has to, like, in so many ways, like, when you imagine a god, you have to kind of, like, you're like, oh, but he's just a dude. But no. He has to come off with as a god. And the lightning helps, of course. But having Drax, like, so in love with him, especially in the movies, always made it so much more, like, believable in so many ways that in the universe, Thor is this, like, god figure.
Yeah, absolutely. And Thor is a god, and we need to recognize that, even though on screen they can only do so much. Could you imagine there's somebody with underlighting or ground effects for Thor wherever they were going on screen? Just to lend that. That's like literally what's happening in real life. He has his own
like lighting team or something like that.
Exactly.
And, like, they just make him look that much more beautiful. They used to do it quite well with Lord of the Rings and, like, Galadriel and the elves. Like, they would give them this, like, different filter to make it's like all the elves got a beauty filter. That would have been, like, an interesting take in the MCU to give all of the Asgardian gods, like, a beauty filter compared to everybody else that they deal with.
Smart.
Yeah.
So we get a shift in focus, which I thought was really neat. They did not maintain the same semblance of focus, but the shots are pretty much the same. I didn't flip these. That's what they literally came up in both Thor and in the animated show. You can see they're both the same in many ways. The angles are a bit different, but the shot is still the same, and the threat is still implicit. In fact, the threat is so much more implied in the animated version than it was
because we can actually see everything, and it's not blurry because of rain being blurry.
Exactly.
And yeah.
So our focus is on Thor in the animated one, and it is on Hawkeye in the movie. And I mean, is there ever any real threat to Thor in the movie? I never felt that there was.
No.
There was this guy there, but we were all eager anticipating him pulling
because
the hammer.
We didn't know who Hawkeye was in this movie. This was the first movie that he was in, and he's not actually referred to anything. I think he's just there, and I never felt like Thor with his plot armor had any sort of.
Well, the threat here is not that he is going to get killed by Hawkeye. The threat is that he's not going to be able to pull Mjolnir from the ground.
Yeah.
In this one here, we know he can't pick up Mjolnir. We already know that. It
surprised me when Hawkeye killed.
So the shocker is that, and that's why the focus is the way it is. I thought he was going to
get arrested and just like not get out or something like that. Yeah.
So we go back to the other screen. Now Hawkeye's in jail as well. Hawkeye's dealt with in a snap, not a Thanos snap, but we don't even get to see him dead. He's sitting there, he's talking, and then he's gone. So
it's such a fascinating thing too, because you're like, what is killing these people? And I honestly did not even guess it was going to be what it was, which is so good.
I was shocked
so
too.
Good.
So we move to our third, which it starts out beautifully because it is not Liv Tyler. There's a different lady portraying Betty Ross walking through, but they have got all of the accoutrement, the hair, the clothes, everything she's wearing is exactly from The Incredible Hulk. As you can see side to side, she's walking down the road and she's accosted by Black Widow. Why is Black Widow there? Not because of the Hulk himself. In fact, I didn't think that Black Widow knows Hulk's in town. He has only just barely gotten there. She has gone there because she knows that she's kept the Hulk a secret and kept the Hulk a secret from the army.
It's a good Venn diagram of my needs, right? I need to figure out what this is that caused this death. And I know you can keep a secret. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and this is what's amazing. They did not go get Edward Norton to go and play the voice of Bruce Banner in this episode. They did not. Mark Ruffalo is our Hulk. Not Edward Norton. So they have now shifted things because they draw scene from scene. They draw specific set pieces and interactions.
Clothing,
straight out of
references,
Exactly. Everything is tied. Even the things that Bruce Banner is wearing in this episode are exactly what Edward Norton was wearing, and the way Edward Norton was wearing it. As you move to the next slide, you can see there it is, the hat and the jacket, and those are on the table because it's in between the scenes where we didn't see what happened when he got there and he delivered the pizza. And then you can see down below his shirt. This is just before they get attacked. His shirt is untucked there. She's standing next to him. And in the Edward Norton piece, they literally spent 20 odd seconds untucking his shirt, saying completely unnecessary things like, that hat is too tight. Your hair is a little unkempt. It just looked better this way.
She just wanted to touch him.
Yeah, no, I get that. But it's 20 seconds.
Okay, yeah.
So we have a change in our own perspective because now we are going to be able to associate the Mark Ruffalo voice and Mark Ruffalo features of the Hulk of Bruce Banner instead of Edward Norton, and that's how they're shifting and changing. And I think that if there's going to be future stuff that might be set during Incredible Hulk, it's all going to be Mark Ruffalo.
Zach is pointing out that this universe has no Abomination or leader because Hulk doesn't beat up Bronski. Yeah.
We don't even want to get into what comes next because there are so many things that don't happen. Remember, Tony's dead. Whiplash
Yeah.
is now
It's just fine.
he's running around.
Yeah.
Tony has given the codes to the Iron Man armor to Rhodey, so
Yep.
at least that's been done. But anything you might see, like what happens with Mandarin and the Ten Rings, then, because that follows this.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff that may or may not be happening.
I mean, Rhodey probably takes over from
and getting into
mantle
those potentialities from this what if, not the scope.
I mean,
we could talk for 2 hours.
Well, it's literally the Loki timeline.
Yes, President Loki.
Well, no. It's the Loki timeline of like now it's like going off into the million directions because there is so much.
So many permutations and transitions and changes that occur as a result of this. So the Hulk is a strange choice to me. I was kind of surprised that they were going to do this because one thing the Marvel Cinematic Universe, not the MCU, but one thing Marvel has done over and over and over again is show us that the Hulk cannot be killed.
I know, it was such an interesting choice, and in the comics too, it's like a golden rule. And Betty herself is like, the Hulk can't die. Like he can't die.
She says it 7 times.
I know.
7 times.
I know.
He can't die because he can't die. It's not a question, folks. It's a statement. He can't die. He's tried and cannot, but somehow or other, he can. I'm still shocked at that. And so let's move to the next panel and we'll talk a little bit about, furthermore.
A little bit more Hulk stuff, yeah.
Yeah, this was great. I loved this scene. I loved how they got there in the animated version, that it was just them walking when the guys arrived, and so many more men arrived. There was like one helicopter, literally one helicopter in the movie.
Those helicopters cost money.
I know, in the real movie, and in the animated, there's 11 helicopters.
Well, and also you commented on like the trucks too in a later scene, and you're like, they all drive the same way and all the doors open at the same time. They were cheating. They were copy pasting.
In this, though, I just love the jump because literally his jump from there down to the ground is beat for beat the same thing as it was in the movie. And you can follow through to see that as he leaps down and then starts to fight and then can't. Also, who shot the gun that carried the person killing the Hulk?
Yeah, who knows?
I would like to know who that was because there's a definite gunfire.
Yeah. That shot him, and it looked like he got shot, and he was shot with an Ant-Man.
Yeah. So, moving on. Okay, he is called the Immortal Hulk. There are so many scenes of him being beheaded, cut apart, exploded, morphed into this gigantic blob. If you look at the bottom right one, I tried to make these not too big because they're very graphic. It's literally the most body horror, the most horror the Marvel superhero universe has ever really gotten to with its main cast of characters. The Hulk has more terrible, horrible, disgusting things happen to him.
Deadpool does too.
Deadpool does, but it's usually just, it's not like explosive where he's like globs of flesh like the Thing and whatnot that happens in this.
No, he does. He gets like several times he loses okay.
I was just referring to like the Thing.
Fine. Yes. Okay.
And with Deadpool, it's always colored with this grade of humor.
No, he's always making fun of it while it's happening. I know.
Yeah.
Humor, so it's like violence and innocence together. They balance each other out, and humor helps cushion horrific blows, right? So if there's some sort of humor involved, then it helps to, mute it a little bit.
Okay. So when it comes to the Immortal Hulk, this sort of stuff has happened to him before, where he's been expanded to a great rate and then exploded. He would still come back. I don't know how he does that, but he still does. And yet... Yeah,
maybe we just assume he's done and he comes back. Yeah.
I'm going to guess. Yeah, and Ian mentions, and I was going to bring it up as well, that one of the best current runs in the comic universe right now is the God Immortal Hulk, where they've actually talked about how any of the Hulks are all immortal beings and do not have the ability to die. And they're actually pursuing the where do they go when they die bit now. And that was one of the really interesting parts in the one shot of the Immortal She-Hulk.
Like they're kind of exploring that in Thor too. Like he can't die either because he becomes kind of like the All-Father, right?
Thor All-Father. So here we go. It was really shocking, surprising. I mean, like they revealed him, so he's dead. But at the same time, it was really surprising because that is not where I would have gone with. I probably would have just left the Hulk on the cutting room floor, I'm thinking.
I think it was just the convenience of the storytelling because we knew they were all happening at the same time. Now we know, but they knew it was all happening at the same time.
Thank you, Ian. The green door in the place below. It's really interesting stuff. Really, really digs into the meat of the psychology,
of existential dread of never dying. Is that?
Well, how is there any existential dread if you're never dying? Right?
It's still existential because it's quantifying your existence in your brain.
About existential dread means that like I exist up until a point and then I will die.
Yeah,
that is the dread there.
But the dread can also be I don't die. Like vampires get it and all sorts of immortal beings.
I think it has to have a different title.
Yeah, it would. But like nobody is immortal, so nobody had to have named it. It is the equivalent of contemplating your own existence and having terribleness come out from that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know you're getting really aggressive.
I'm not.
And you're constantly trying to refute. It's. Okay. All right. So moving on, the Immortal Hulk, I did not see dying.
Oh.
And then what was great is that they interlace the conflict with the Hulk. Because it's so short, right? He dies so suddenly. He gets to flip a couple tanks and roar in anger. But they've intercut that with the fight of Loki blasting all of the shield agents.
Oh, yeah, with the cradle
with his box of cold.
The box of gold.
What's in the box?
What's in the box?
Says Nick Fury.
Yeah, which is him and that box were what was stolen from Jotunheim. Mm-hmm. So.
Or stolen, or I mean, Loki was definitely stolen. It definitely felt like the box was like, I'm taking this. You're watching me take this because you were not good and you were bad people, and I will hold on to this until you've learned to be good.
No, Odin is basically like a first grade teacher taking away the toy
He's
from
like the All-Father.
No, I know. He's everybody's teacher.
He's everybody's dad. And he held it without revealing his blue form.
Because he's magic.
Yeah. Ooh, it's magic. Ooh, the Casket of Ancient Winters is what it's called.
Oh, I love it. Huh. Go, Zach. Thanks.
That was Lily. Lily with the Casket of Ancient Winters.
Sorry, I saw the Eternal Winters and Ancient Winters.
Yes,
ancient. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Zach.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is Ancient Winters. I'm almost positive. So, I mean, he has to be a frost giant. We're not going to get into that. That isn't the what if here. He's holding the box. He doesn't turn blue. That's fine. Neither here nor there. Maybe he can control the blueness. He did take the box from the place. I'm imagining the scene with Odin where he's like, you will take this box and you will go and avenge your brother. And he's like, yes, I will.
And then he's like, and don't turn into a frost giant because I know you are.
And then you're like, oh, okay, Dad, I'll deal with that later, and I'll go conquer Midgard.
Thanks for the emotional damage before I go and save the universe.
Yeah, so the picture of the movie...
Maybe they had a heart-to-heart on, in Valhalla.
Maybe.
And in Asgard. And they're like, I never told you this, but you're adopted. And I'm really sorry I didn't tell you this, but I love you very much. Here's a casket and go and kick their butts. Yeah. Because maybe he was like out of options and, Odin was smart and always, used things against people.
This is weird. You've gone down a real rabbit hole here. Thanks. The scene on the left there, the scene from the movie, that isn't Loki. Just so everyone's aware, that's just the guy. An Asgardian taking the box in the first place. So, yeah, anyway, we get this great fight. Fury throws himself to the ground as it's interspersed with the fight with the Hulk. And that is, I think this fight here is the big, showstopper, tent pole, three-ring circus fight of the entire show. None of the other fights that happen in the episode are as big or as grandiose or have as many set pieces as this. And it also tells... at the end of this fight, because it brings a connection between Loki and Fury, and I actually started to think to myself, oh, does Loki become the first Avenger?
That would be so cool.
Huh. I'm so interested and intrigued by that.
It's like Agents of Asgard, right?
Yeah.
Like that sort of idea.
But Fury is not T'Challa.
Nope.
And so he would probably not be able to convince Loki to join the Avengers at this time.
Although, maybe he did after it's like you got to protect the planet that just melt down.
So now Loki's given them one night to resolve this, which is just perfect because the whole thing happens over the course of a week, of a weekday. Like, it's the weekdays, Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
And I do love the gong as it announces what day of the week it is.
Yeah. It was such a good storytelling mechanism to keep things driving and to be like, oh my God, this all happened in the same week.
Well, on Monday, I should have done a little graph that shows, on Monday, Iron Man dies. On Tuesday, Thor and Hawkeye die. On Wednesday, the Hulk dies.
I don't mean to comment on your PowerPoint game, but I would have done it.
I don't even really know how to take screenshots. So what you're getting from me is the best that I could possibly offer.
You're doing great, and I'm not doing it. So
I'm happy for you, and we move forward. I know everybody in the chat's like, Fury could totally convince Loki.
I mean, he convinces him to help him.
He doesn't in this one.
Yeah, maybe he's like, he's busy being president, and now we all work for him.
Okay, so I have tried very hard to figure out what this was as we go to the public library in Manassas, Virginia. And I cannot for the life of me figure out why Black Widow rushes off to Manassas, Virginia, the public library there. Now, just so you know, there is Manassas and Manassas Park. And Manassas has a public library, but it's connected to a Staples and it's since closed down and it's up for lease. And it looks nothing like the building you see in front of you here when we're watching the episode. The picture, though, on the left is the Manassas Park public library, very close to each other. In fact, the two townships or two cities are actually touching each other. Oh. But the Manassas Park public library looks like the image that you can see.
It does. Yeah, it's got the little clock tower area and the pillars.
Very similar.
Yeah, somebody grew up there, I'm sure.
So it's
Who grew up in Manassas Park?
So just to be clear, in the image, if you make it big again.
Okay.
In the animated version, there's a clock. Those are columns, and it has this big, beautiful public library. In Manassas Park, that is not a clock. Those aren't especially, marble columns, and there isn't a sign off to the left there that says public library. It has a little sign. I don't think it says public library. This is a what-if universe. And this is, of course, yes. Yeah. So they're just taking a riff. But at the same time, it's also so close to the same building and so close to the same design features that I think that this has to be the same place. So why did they go to Manassas? Why did she go to Manassas, Virginia? Why is she in this public library in Manassas, Virginia?
Which of the people in the writing room grew up in Manassas, Virginia?
And I would like to know why this is a thing, because they make a point of telling us she's not in the same town anymore. She's not at the college. She left.
She went somewhere else, and she was tracked down.
I don't think she was tracked down.
You think he went with her?
I think he went with her.
Oh,
that was what I was trying to figure out. Was how
did you find her.
How did you find her? Oh,
Yeah.
you've been there all along. I got it. So, really weird. Can anybody tell me, is there anything in the Marvel universe, anything in the comics that have ever referenced Manassas or Manassas Park, Virginia at all? Because I couldn't find anything on the internet today. And granted, I only spent like 5-10 minutes looking it up, but I still spent 5-10 minutes looking it up. I was able to find the Manassas Park Public Library because it's not the same as the Manassas Library. So
And it's like Google, like, did you
searching.
mean the Manassas Public Library or did you mean the Manassas Park Public
No,
Library?
I didn't even ask. I just had to zoom out. I was like, oh, there's another library in a place called Manassas Park, and it's right next to it. Oh, interesting. So either way, beautiful, cool scene that leads to the question. And I have to tell you this. I watched it the first time, and it made zero sense to me. I was like, what about hope? What are you asking about hope?
No, I knew right away.
But Marie Claire got to know right away. Why is that? Because the subtitles capitalize the word hope.
I would have guessed that anyways.
I know you would have, but unfortunately, you
We'll
also
never
had
know.
that added benefit of the subconscious of capitalizing the word hope to make it a name and not just a word. So I didn't get that benefit. If I was watching it, I was like, dang, the subtitles, if it had been lowercase, then you would have been like, oh, is it? But because it's uppercase, you're immediately given.
Like, I think I said, oh, it's about Hope Van Dyne.
Yes.
And you're like, oh. And I'm like, okay, but you can't take away my glory because I guessed it right away. So.
No, you guessed it right away. If they had just, come on, lowercase the word hope so that at least it sounds like she's just talking about having hope. It kind of makes sense. We got to have hope.
Kudos to the closed captions that come out right away because they're always nice and clean. And like for all the Disney Plus shows, they're doing a really, really great job with those. And I always have closed captions on because sometimes I have trouble hearing certain things when there's lots going on. And so I always listen, or I always watch with closed captions now.
Yeah. And Gwendy's husband guessed hope immediately, and they didn't have any subtitles. So
me and Gwendy's husband, high five.
I'm not taking anything away from you. You have definitely like I didn't get it right away. You did, and you had the subtitles, but even if you didn't have the subtitles, you would have caught it right away.
Yes, they did show.
There was a couple
Janet.
Flashes. They were deliberate in that revelation.
They wanted you to be smart, to feel smart if you
exactly
decide like, hey, it's Hope Van Dyne. Like they wanted you to be correct, right?
So she's there, and unfortunately, Marie Claire is again on a call with work, and I once again
I've been really busy with work. Like, to be fair, like...
Yeah, there's no time at which if I could make any sound at all, everyone would be like, why aren't you alone in the room? Anyway, so unfortunately, Marie Claire is working today, very busy, lots of calls. I watched this episode and I burst out laughing because...
Every episode, you burst out laughing at
Steve's
some moment.
password is the highlight moment of the show.
Make it big.
I can make it big. It is... Hashtag Steve, I heart Steve, July 4th or Independence Day.
Oh my God.
And I could not stop laughing.
I love Coulson so much. Having Greg, I think when we were watching, I was like, I love having Clark Gregg back in the MCU. I love him so much. He's such a good ad. I just want Coulson back in like the movies, and I want him in a TV show again. I miss Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
So he loves Thor, thinks Thor's absolutely beautiful, and he hearts Steve. Now,
I heart Steve too.
I read a great article. There's a Tor.com. I don't remember the name of the lady I think it's Leah, is doing a recap.
People think it's Steve's birthday too.
Okay. July 4th is Independence Day, guys. Either way. It's all about being It's all about being patriotic.
He knows Steve's birthday.
That's hilarious.
He's got his card.
So he does. He has his cards. He has the collectible set of cards.
Yeah.
They're near and dear to him. But making Steve his password Remember, at this point, Steve hasn't been found.
Yep.
He is still just a fanboy at heart. And he recognizes the patrioticness of Steve. And so every day when he logs in with that password, which I would imagine would have. Initially, I thought 0704 meant that that's how many times he's done the password. So it's like it's his ongoing, like, you know, like your password is banana 2 and the next password will be banana 3, right? Like,
most password systems now should prevent that.
Yeah. Whatever. We need mnemonics in our lives in order to remember these lengthy passwords that are required of us. And our brains are not.
People are going to be like, Kyle's password is banana 1.
No, God, I've been using that password for years. Now I got to figure out how many it is. What's important here is every time he logs in, and the person at Tor.com who was doing the reviews commented on this, that every time Coulson logs in, he types in hashtag Steve, I heart Steve 0704 as a way to remind him and himself of Steve's patriotic duty and Steve's sacrifice and his own reasons for joining S.H.I.E.L.D. And that's really thoughtful, and it's super funny, and it makes you laugh right away. But it's informative of the character of Coulson, and also one of the key reasons we all love Coulson so much.
Yeah, he loved heroes so much, and he believed in them, and he is us.
Yeah,
he's
our stand-in.
He was our stand-in for so much, and then Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was so good.
Exactly. Oh, so good. Okay, so now we go back, and Fury's like, he gets the message from Widow. Widow's dead.
New Mexico?
Yeah, we're back to New Mexico, and I worked really hard on this, folks, so I'm going to make it nice and big. These are 2 different shots from the town in New Mexico that Thor is set in. And the 2 shots down below are actually the same shots, and I just kind of focused them. As you can see down the street in the animated What If, you see down the street and you see the big ice palace that Loki has made. You never see down the street this way ever in Thor. But they have recreated in animated form all of the buildings, and the fronts are still the same, and the side poles are still the same, and the liquor writing, the individual liquor boxes of the letters that are on the big pole are all the same, and it is so amazingly done. And I want to also point out that we've seen this as well, that in What If, there is this glowing golden amber light that infuses all of their shots.
Everything kind of has that light, or that patina.
Yes, and it is not there in any of the movies. It is it is the signifying color and quality that puts What If in its own category. It's very different. I haven't seen anything really like it that I can immediately call to mind.
And I've loved the animation in all 3 episodes, but this episode specifically because of how shot for shot or how it replicated so much of the movies in these like very unique ways, just like made me love this animation, especially when we get the rain with Thor and Hawkeye. I was like, oh, this and the hair. This episode is so beautiful. It just made me really love this animation. And anyone who is like doesn't like it, I'm like, what are you talking about? This this animation is so beautiful.
Yeah. I just want to go back to it again so you can, because you probably didn't even notice it. You're like, oh, it's the same town. And you knew that in the back of your brain. But then because they hit on so many of the exact same details in each of these pictures, and each time they focused on the scenes, it's so really well done. And there was a scene of the coffee shop as well. And I just was like, this is too many slides, Kyle. You're talking forever. You can move on from how beautiful it is. And let's talk about Odessa, Ukraine.
Okay.
So Fury mentions Odessa, Ukraine when they talk about Hope Van Dyne's death. She died in Odessa, Ukraine. Any guess as to why that's relevant?
I have no clue.
Odessa, Ukraine is mentioned one time in the MCU It is the location where the Winter Soldier killed the engineer by
shooting
Black Widow
through shooting the engineer through Black Widow. I love that so much. Sorry.
Yes. I'm glad you caught on.
Thanks.
So it is now assumed, based on this, now we know our what if. What if Hope Van Dyne had joined S.H.I.E.L.D.? Then she would have gone on the trip to Odessa, Ukraine to protect the engineer and would have died in the protection of him. And we would then assume Black Widow did not go on that trip.
And most likely Winter Soldier killed her.
Yes. That is the assumption here. So there we go. This is where this is referenced. And Zach down below has told us that it happened in Captain America 2. I didn't really care. I knew that it was mentioned, and there's an actual in the MCU Wikipedia. There is the mention of Odessa, Ukraine, and it actually has both of those points already raised. Like, they're both in there already. Odessa, Ukraine. This is where she was shot in the stomach, killed the engineer, and it's also where Hope Van Dyne dies in the movie. So now we know our what if. What if Hope Van Dyne had joined the MCU or had joined S.H.I.E.L.D. as an agent? So now we know that what if. It leads us to our end scene. And I have to give kudos to, his name has escaped me.
What?
The actor who plays
Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas. Thank you.
Yeah.
Michael, I have to give kudos to Michael Douglas in this because it is absolutely believable from a voice perspective. He sounds matter in both senses of the word.
Yeah. He knocked this one out of the park from a voice acting perspective.
It's incredible how good he is as he is assumed, and I've been trying to stay away from calling him Ant-Man.
No, he looks like Yellow Jacket too.
Because he's Yellow Jacket. He is not Ant-Man. He has gone the way of Yellow Jacket, and I would think that he's gone a little insane. And overcome with grief and wanting revenge, right? He's gone down the dark path. And it took him 2 years to enact his vengeance.
And kill all the future heroes because they wanted to join S.H.I.E.L.D. or there was something that was going to happen. And he's like, no, I got to put a stop to this. Instead of just killing Fury or killing the institution, he's like, no, I'll kill your dreams.
Yes. And the writers were so good that after the movie, you're thinking, and if you're after the show, you're sitting there, you're thinking like, wait a second, they weren't all Avengers yet because they didn't even know Thor's name, right? He was there to kill Hawkeye, and he used Hawkeye to kill that guy, and he says it during the fight. When Fury rattles off the list, Thor's name is not on that list. He mentions Thor as a like, I knew that golden boy was going to join your squad and I took him out because I could.
Yep.
And they make sure, and that's what I just love. They went to that extra step to ensure that all of their little loose ends that might be questions are not left unanswered. And they've done that 3 episodes in a row, and they've laid everything in a perfect
they've
tapestry.
really thought it through. And one of the things that it does show is the like being so economical with the storytelling to tell exactly what you need to tell, exactly how you need to tell it. And it's super entertaining. I have to say, it's just really impressive to see storytelling done this solidly and thoughtfully. And it was done years and years ago. We've talked about this so many times, how long ago this was written and recorded and the animation has been worked on. And they know what they're doing as storytellers. And like, what does this do to me other than make me double down on my love and appreciation of the MCU? Because they know their story better than anybody else, and they know what they're trying to do with it. That is so sexy.
Yes. And it's not done here.
Yeah.
That's what's great about this. Is like the revelation has happened. we've got our what if finally. Then the revelation of it. Oh my God, it's her dad. It's Hank Pym. He's been behind this the entire time. Oh my God.
And
then,
it all makes sense. You're like, and they show the flashes of him being in the straw, and then like him going into the Hulk, and then him, like all of those things. And it's like, oh, so good. It's, you know what it feels like? This episode particularly feels like when you finally get to the end of Knives Out and you're like, this was brilliant. This was brilliant. And it just makes you feel so satisfied. And that's why on second watching, it feels so good. It's just like watching Knives Out, where you're watching a whodunit and you're like, I know how this is going to be. And then you get to appreciate all of the different puzzle pieces that are clicked into place with it.
That's what these framework shows are so good at, is that you watch the show from the outside of the framework. When you watch it again, you are not on that outside edge of the framework anymore. You have an internal understanding of what's happening, and you get to step into the next level of the piece because it's so deep. It's an animated half-hour TV show. It doesn't have that much depth to it, so you can't go like it. You're not going to get more upon further watchings like you do with Knives Out. When you watch Knives Out, you can start watching it for different further things. And I like to think about it as music too. You can enjoy a song, especially a big classical piece, from the external level of having listened to it and be like, oh, and they caught the main themes of it. But upon the second and third listening, you start to hear, oh, wow, what's that timpani doing behind there? Oh, wow, the violin section is doing something else while the brass section is doing the main theme. They're working on this whole underlaying tone that you then hear later on in the song. And this happens in a lot of great classical orchestras. And what's in the same vein, the music that they use in this, as we've shown each of them, they're using the same music from the movies. When you see those scenes happening in the set pieces, oftentimes they're using the exact same music from those moments, until such time as we get something like this, which is completely off the rails and has not happened in the MCU. There's no Hank Pym fights Nick Fury while Nick Fury laughs.
Well, Nick Fury is actually Loki. There was a great call out, and I just wanted to talk about it for a second. Zach asked, why does S.H.I.E.L.D. have Thor, right? And why didn't he return back to Asgard? And truthfully, I honestly think that because Odin is a spiteful SOB and he wouldn't let him return until he was worthy, and he never became worthy. And that's very Viking and Norse of him, frankly. Also, Loki is now the God King of Earth, and he can do what he wants, and he doesn't get to go home. So there we are. That to me is my take on it, my headcanon. I also just think like they knew that hammer was his and he never got to touch it. So yeah. What
a great end though, with Nick Fury. Nick Fury's everywhere, revealed to be Loki's, the god of mischief. Everywhere. And then Hank Pym led away to whatever punishment he is in store for him. But our TV show is not done there. Because now we get sorry, maybe I went too far. No, this is next. Loki does the revelation next. He's like, actually, I could use your help. Maybe I'll stay a little bit longer. And that's when Nick Fury says, how much longer? And it goes, Gong, Friday.
Yeah. I do want to just shout out, because we didn't really talk about it, but Loki pretending to be Nick Fury because Nick Fury made the deal with him. Like, that was just brilliant. Like, so brilliant. Because we had the sort of reveal of Hank Pym being the bad guy all along. And then we had another reveal, which is to say that Nick was smart enough to use Loki in that way and to ask for help.
The guy that he was fighting wasn't even Nick Fury.
No, I know. It was Loki. I know.
It was Agatha all along.
It was Loki all along. Yeah.
So we now get Loki's speech as he marches up to the UN. We get the UN itself, and then we get beautiful. I wanted to pull more of them, and I got kind of tired of it. Loki shots, because there were just so many beautiful Loki shots. And I'll tell you this, in the flashes in the 30-second promos and the 1.5 minute promo that we got, there is a lot of this. This episode has so many shots for this season. I am starting to notice
it
the
means
ones
that we
are
probably don't
not-
know. Yeah, we probably won't know. Like, there's so many more episodes. So
And we have seen, if you watch the previews again, you'll note that most of the stuff in the previews are from these 3 episodes. It seems like it's so much more because there's like a Hulk piece and an Iron Man piece, right? And a Black Widow.
But the only
stuff.
one that we know, a lot of people recognize the zombie episode, so we know that that's still upcoming.
But even that's just a flash.
I know.
And some Doctor Strange stuff. We have seen lots of stuff that has yet to come. But a lot of stuff led to me thinking that there was going to be the start of the piece is Loki taking over. Whereas it's actually the end of this is Loki taking
Sort of
over.
the denouement of the episode is to show like what and things end up happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as a result, we're given Loki's speech to the UN. And I'll just pull that up. It is the unspoken truth of humanity that you crave subjugation. The bright lure of freedom hobbles you, diminishes your life's joy. Then there should be a ... You were made to be ruled. And this is the exact same speech that he makes
In Avengers.
After he appears on scene, leaves the party and goes out onto the street and demands that everyone there kneel. And they all do. Once they kneel, he makes this speech. Now I said ... when I was reading it out. That ... is... It's a movie in the Avengers. He goes on for like another 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And then he finishes with...
But it's enough to give us the impression. Yeah.
Exactly. That final line. In other words, everything he says at the UN is exactly what he was planning to do leading into Avengers.
This is always what he wanted.
This is that through line has been achieved, and instead of saying it to just a group of people on a Berlin street, he is now saying it amongst all of the nations.
He's always had this speech in his back pocket, and he just could pull it out at any time.
Exactly. I am Loki. I have won. And he won because all of those people were not there. And so we get Fury, and this is I should have done this one too. Fury now does his speech to Coulson that he had actually done to the larger group of people, including Avengers.
Which is like the reverse of what happens, right?
Exactly, right? So Loki gets to say his speech in front of everyone, and Fury does his speech in front of
gets to
one
live.
person. That's true. And in the opposite way. Coulson's alive here, and everybody else is dead.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that. What a nice synergy that is. Except that we're really getting nailed on the heartstrings. I'm really sad. All of our heroes have been completely killed off. So.
And then we know this leads to the last moments of the episode, which is Fury searching for Captain America, and of course Captain Marvel showing up, and I was obsessed with this idea. I'm like, the 2 captains together, what are they gonna do? I love it so much. I just want to see more. I love it. Yeah, Captain America and Captain Marvel being together and being like the new Avengers. Yeah.
So once again, another amazing epilogue, which they have not been revealing like at the end of the credits. You could think that they would have put Captain Carter erupting out of the portal. They could have put the party with T'Challa at the end of that episode, and they could have put this scene here with I didn't take a screenshot of it, but Captain Marvel and Captain America being discovered or returning at the end of the credits. Instead, they've literally just shoved them right in front of the credits, and there are no after credits scenes in this animated show.
It's kind of fun to like go and think through how many villains are not made because Tony Stark is not around.
Yep.
Like, okay, so we don't get we don't get the invasion of New York, so we don't get the Vulture, and we don't get Ultron because Tony and Bruce are dead, and we don't get we can go on because
but you still get Whiplash, and you still get Killian, and you still get
they're
others.
They're weak people. I'm sure Captain Marvel could just go punch them in the face and it'll be fine.
But what I was going to say about these epilogues is all of them, because of the way the What If is structured, I'm interested and intrigued by the story itself, and I love the story. And this epilogue piece, always without fail, makes me go,
Huh. Like, so it's kind of like a cyclical cycle. You're like, you started with a what if, and then there's almost like presented showing to say, but what if more?
Yeah. What happens next?
Yeah.
That's what I'm intrigued and excited by Captain Marvel and Captain America working together to defeat a world run and controlled by Loki. What does that look like? That show would be incredible. And where are we going to get that? Well, we'll only get that in fan created works at this point, which it seems like Marvel's saying, go do these things.
Yeah, which is...
Go make that content, because then we'll put it into a what if in the future, and we'll make all the money on it. Ha ha ha, we're Marvel.
No, we're Disney. I mean, yeah. I mean, it definitely seems like that's some of the stuff that they were talking about, that like some people felt like they were definitely reading some fan fiction, especially for the first episode. So it's interesting, but if you put it out there, it could end up in the show at some point. Yeah.
And so that's it. A little longer than an hour today, but this episode was dense.
Yeah.
With subtle analytical meaning in ways that the other two weren't. So my end feelings on this is, if you've only watched this one time, it definitely feels like a 6 out of 10. Not as good as the first two episodes.
It's a little disorienting to get into. I definitely agree with that. But
give the writers and the director the benefit of the doubt and watch it again, and you will find so much more enjoyment in the episode, being in on the secret and seeing what's happening, and that Black Widow is not fighting an invisible opponent in the library in Manassas Park, Virginia. Black Widow's actually fighting a minuscule opponent that none of us can see. And that's interesting, and it's engaging, and you are going to enjoy this third episode a second time.
It's exactly like Knives Out. You enjoy the second watching because you're like, oh, I can see it now. I can see exactly what they're doing and how it's happening. And it's neat to see that this episode was people's favorites in so many ways. I really appreciated the style and the structure and the genre that they were plugging into. That's just my jam. And of course, the appreciation for their own story and understanding it so well that they can explore these ideas and also say, look, free, every idea is valid. And that just makes me love this storytelling even more and appreciate that we're having you come out and join us in this conversation. Also makes us feel loved as well.
Well, thank you very much for coming in and guesting on your own show today. Really enjoyed having you.
Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't make it last week, but literally I couldn't get out of bed, so...
That's fine. It's all good. And we're here next week with the next episode of What If. I have no idea what is to come, and that's perfectly fine by me. But I'm here to debate and think about it ever more in a critical, analytical lens. And one of the things I really wanted to mention, and I forgot to put in the PowerPoint, was along the lines of what you were talking about there, is superheroes beget supervillains. And so we can think about what happens when there are no supervillains, but what happens when the superhero is unrealized. And there's a lot of unrealized superheroes in this episode. And I think it's also one of the reasons why people are immediately discomfited by it when they first watch it, because where are our heroes? In this episode, we don't get any. Yeah,
it is disorienting this episode, and they do such a good job of doing that. And I think that in and of itself is how to tell like a disorienting story using genre and using different ideas like that is an important tool to have in your box, as far as if you're a creator and understanding like, okay, this is a way to disorient my audience so that I can tell something that is actually, interesting and unique in that way. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming out. Where can people find you?
Oh, I'm Marie Claire Gould again. And if you want to follow me on my personal Twitter, it is Marie C. Gould. And if you're interested in Star Wars, you can follow What the Force at WT Force Show, or on the rest of this channel. You can, of course, follow this channel's Twitter, which is WT Force Media. I am available on YouTube in 2 locations and on RSS feeds at What the Force and What the Fiction. Or if you are into RPGs, you can find my voice on Tavern Tales, which is an actual play D&D podcast, but we are moved into the world of masks, which is actually superheroes, which is also game mastered by you.
Super
Story
fun.
told. Yeah.
So, you like this content? Feel free to do that like button thing. I think that people do on YouTube. I'm not a good host for this sort of stuff, but please, you want more of this content? Tell Marie Claire that you want it by joining the Patreon at www.patreon.com/whattheforce. Subscribers, I think is what it is, or patrons.
Patrons, yeah.
Once Marie Claire reaches a certain number of patrons, she then does a bi-weekly or monthly or weekly recap of what's going on in her life, which is lots of fun to listen
My
to
minimum
as well.
was 100 because I was like, oh, I have to have 100 patrons to do this. And then I dropped below 100, so I'm not doing it right now.
Join today and tell your friends about our content because they're going to enjoy it too. And then you can talk about us and our crazy, unformed opinions. Or don't tell your friends about us and then use our opinions as your own. But make sure you tell me that you did. Just quietly. Send me a little message or whatnot.
I argued with somebody using your opinion.
Exactly. And that's it for us. We will see you next week, at the exact same time.
Thanks for joining us.
But like an hour earlier because it's already 8:15.
Cheers.
Bye now.